Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. A very interesting title that has found me. It is the distinction between the inner realms and the outer realms, and one of the most important questions that human beings can ask, in some sense, that is my mind, or the phenomenology or the content of my mind, is it an extension of physical reality? What does that mean? That means, imagine a person, there are two people in a room, but one of those people sees three people in a room. Now, if those two were, let's say there's two people on an island, one of the two people, let's say, sees three people on the island, one of them is seeing a ghost, imagine. And it's like the inner realms of that person that's seeing three people cannot be ignored by that person. It's as if like the content of your mind is how the world echoed in your soul. You see, the inner realm and the outer realm. First, we must find a way to acknowledge a sort of view upon like the distinction between the inner realm and the outer realm. Then we can wonder if the inner realm is an extension of the outer realm. So for example, right now in 2020, we're living at a time where even though we're 8 billion people on the same earth, we don't see the same earth. Okay, every person has their own inner realm. So that means your individuality, your uniqueness, who you are as a person, is based on how your inner realms differentiate regular sight from another person's sense of norm. So what I mean by that is that I pretty much, as a human being, I thought like, all right, if we want to develop a system of acknowledgement, a universal system, that means anywhere in the universe, the system has to kind of work if we want to design a universal system. So I was wondering, what is the most common experience, the common denominator experience of human beings? You see, what we know in our experiences are different, but only when we don't know something, that is what we have that's kind of the same. Like I noticed that, of course, human beings, everyone, each human being has different eyes, a different roadmap in the space continuum. But the idea was that in some sense there is an inner space where deviations, parallel potentials, visualizations, and memories of reality dwell. And then there's right in front of your eyes the outer realms, which in some sense is purely physical. That means the way I kind of notice, because it's very hard, because if you keep your eyes open and you imagine, let's say right now I'm looking at a coffee cup, I can have my eyes open, but also simultaneously imagine like a copy pasted version of this coffee cup hovering in the air. My eyes are open. I don't see that second coffee cup in the air, the exact copy of this one, because it's a visualization. But when I close my eyes, I still have access to that. So it's like when you close your biological eyes, your inner realms remain. When you open your biological eyes, the inner realms also remain alongside the visible spectrum. So what I mean is that our inner realm, we can't close its eyes. Only when we go to sleep or deep sleep or some sort of intense physical transition can suggest it. So I'm saying that the eyes of your body close and open, but the eyes of your mind are open if you exist to yourself. If you right now are a creature, if you see the existence of anything, because there's different levels of this, guys. There's some beings that they are evolving as their selves in this world. There's some beings that they're not evolving as their self in this world. What I mean by that is that like there's like the shark, and then there's all those fish that are around the shark, you know? So it's in some sense the dependence on the ecosystem, the communication with the world. That means you're not just here to communicate with people. Your world is alive. Communicate to it. understand it, look at it, feel it, you know? So anyways, guys, I've kind of designed a model here to kind of make it easier for a species to comprehend or have a way to kind of value the inner realms and the outer realms. So Mr. Within's definition of the outer realms, sight, the outer realms equals sight, that when you close your eyes, it's not there. I'm speaking specifically in the visual sense, but you can apply it to all the senses. The inner realms equal sight regardless of if our eyes are open or not. Do you see? That's what I'm more interested. The sight of the mind, the vision of your mind is not an object. So to comprehend ourselves only as an object in this world is not enough. You have to also comprehend yourself not as just a set of particles or a set of sequences or a series of, micro and macro cause and effect kind of, permutations or various branches branching out of. I'm just saying that the inner realms is and space. So right now, I think that was a good definition. The inner realms equals sight that remains regardless of if your eyes are open or not. So that means when I remember a memory from 10 years ago, right now isn't 10 years ago, but that sight remains even though I am not in that moment. Technically, the person's eyes have journeyed through the past. The past for me is always kind of, not always, but like after a while, it's just looking outside a window. When you look at your past, you become a passenger. You go into the passenger consciousness of your free will. When you look at the future, you go in the driver's seat. That means right now, whoever's listening to this, your energy levels are not based on just food or your physical maintenance. Your energy levels are based on how meaning is originating and where the imagery for that meaning is originating from. That means there was a time where I wouldn't let myself do anything. In my youth, I was this kind of, I was open, I would engage, like I was like, I would speak to people, but I was saying I was held back by my own shyness because some part of my psychology felt it was mistaken. That means, do you know how many moments I could have been fearless in if only an image of fear from another moment in my life hadn't bothered me? It's like this. It's like you're a kid, you get pushed, you can't push back. That feeling stays inside you, and then years later when you suddenly get power, suddenly you're pushing, and you're not even pushing people in the present moment. You're pushing your own past away through others. That means we never know people, and we never can know a changing system. That's the reality, guys. That means go clap for all the professors in the world, but realize at the end of the day, the change of the universal sector is the real professor, is the real teaching. That means it's like, what can a drop learn from a river? That's the kind of situation the human being is in. So here's the main thing. This is like what I was really proud to kind of share in this talk. So guys, I developed a kind of model where I brought 4 factors into consideration. And these 4 factors are the branches of 2 factors, and I wish I had like a whiteboard where I could draw this for people, but I can't. So I gotta verbally draw it, vocally draw it. So here's the thing. I'm like this person who's one day realized that his eyes are open in a world. And just for playfully as entertaining, what if my eyes open now? I had no past, I had no future. What would my observation of my present intelligence and in regards to the inner realms and outer realms be? That means if you are just eyes open in existence, how is this existence appearing as an inner realm phenomenon and an outer realm phenomenon? How is it happening, pretty much? So check this out. I came and thought about it like this, guys. I'm like, all right, let's think about it through space. Let's think about it through space. Let's say in front of your eyes, we call that outer space. There's 2 kinds of outer space. There's an outer space that is like more in an empirical sense kind of being said, as in the space beyond our clouds outside, like vacuum-like nature. And then there is an outer space, that's the sense that I'm using, which is pretty much anything in front of your eyes. Anything that you feel is outside of you. Anything you feel you're watching is a space that appears outer. Okay? So the outer space, I thought of, all right, let's divide the world. In front of my eyes, outer space. Behind my eyes, inner space. And then I was like, all right, let's see what we know about these two spaces. I was like, in front of my eyes, all right, I see the outer space. We define it. The mainstream has an explanation. Science has a good grasp on the physicality's origin and development and whatnot. That means when I try to identify what is the outer space, for me, it is the dance of particles beyond linearity. That is pure nihilism. Pure nihilism is spiritual. Because it is the nothingness of the denial. It's when nothing is nothing. It is meta. It is so metaphysical. When nothing is also nothing. You have become the ultimate nihilist. You have returned to when you were never a nihilist. The nihilism has become empty. So anyways, outer space, we can identify the outer space. This is one factor. It's known. Then we can identify what is in the outer space. You know? That means we're like, all right, outer space is the world, and what's in the world is what's in this outer space. Okay? So we, as a civilization, as a species, as a creature that's on a rock in the middle of nowhere, can, with a certain level of confidence and certainty, say that we can identify the outer space, and we know, like, we can know the outer space, and we can also know what is inside the outer space. So if your perception, when you look outside, when you open your eyes, is like a cup, and the cup is like the world, and the coffee in the cup is like what's in the world, so we can identify the coffee cup, and we can identify the coffee in front of our eyes. That's what I'm saying. So that means outer space, it's very easy to identify it. Okay, it's easy to identify what's even inside the outer space. But now, here's the challenge, guys. When we go to identify the inner space, it's unknown, but strangely, what is inside the inner space is not unknown. That means the cup of your inner realms is unknown, but the liquid inside the cup is known. But the cup in of your outer realms in front of your eyes is known, and what's inside it is known. I'm pretty much saying we have a sense of an subjective self, but not the subjective world. That means the question is not, what is my ego? Do I have ego? You know, who cracked my ego? You know, it's not about ego. It's about what world is the ego in. Because the mystical algorithm is that when you ask, who am I? You come to a situation where there is no world for the self. That means there is a world for your outer self, but there isn't a world for your inner self. It's unconditionally evocational. It's unconditional evocation. You know what that means? That means conditional evocation. Let's say conditional movement is like, I can move this cup physically with my hand in its condition. That means the coffee cup is a certain state, a certain condition, and then my hand is another condition, and my hand can move this condition. So it's a conditional movement. But when it comes to the inner realms, there is no linearity. It's as if behind our eyes, the duality is nothing and everything, but in front of our eyes, it's the singular and the multidimensional. That means in front of your eyes, the oscillation of the human psychology is between singular and multidimensional. You either want to be a part of something bigger, or you want to be something specific in something bigger. Do you see what I mean? So people want to be strong individuals, or they want to be strong communities. You know, for me, I realize the community is better. It's like we have to, even though we're kind of lucky, guys. You know, there are some people who say, like, Fermi's paradox is this idea, like, where are the aliens? Where is everybody? As Fermi would say. So that means it's pretty empty out here, guys. So imagine the word extraterrestrials. Now imagine that we had to kind of uh, judge these extraterrestrial civilizations based on their decency. That means I could totally see how life on Earth fractally is suggesting life in the galaxy. I think this is the clearest vision, guys, the clearest wisdom. That in front of your eyes, the known is of importance. Behind your eyes, the unknown is important is of importance. You get to know the known by moving in it, and sound and speech and communication is a sort of movement. So in front of your eyes, efficiency arises by moving. Behind your eyes, the experiential understanding of the unknown comes from less moving. So behind your eyes, follow Taoism, action through inaction, as Lao Tzu would say. But in front of your eyes, inaction through action. That means you act to find moments of stillness. We move so we can pretty much build the next bunker we go to, and then kind of experience life in that, and then run into the battlefield again and go to the next bunker. You know? So that's my thing, guys. So those 4 factors, like draw a square right now, and then divide it into 4 chunks. And it's up to you how you divide it. You can draw an X in it or a cross, but draw a square, divide it in 4 chunks. Okay, 4 parts, and just the top left one, the top left cube. Okay, divide it into 4 cubes, 1 cube, and the top left one, just draw it as black. Just with I have like a black pen right now. Like just color it in. So you technically have an L of whiteness and a kind of vagueness in regards to the mystery. So for me, excitement is no longer just external activity. Excitement is how the inner realm, the content, like the liquid in the cup of the inner realm goes to the brim, and then suddenly we get a sense of the unknown. So I feel we have to live physically in such a way that gives such a momentum and acceleration to our inner realms that automatically, experientially, we discover the texture of the unknownness of the inner space. I don't know if people are following what I'm saying. I feel all minds are, as long as conditionally existent, in a chess game with an unknown cosmos. And what does that mean? That means chess is a game where either you move first or you respond to movement that is moving first. And I'm identifying as the black chess pieces in the sense that the world moved first, then I moved my world. So humility is one of the most important qualities of exploring your unconscious mind, because humility is a sign not that you're a good person. Humility is a sign that you are allowing yourself to see the moment. That means, imagine person A is in the park and person B comes to person A and says a bunch of nonsense. Person A hears person B, and person A can choose the content of their inner realms, in some sense, shift by the new language. That means it depends. Like, sometimes when somebody I haven't known has told me something, I haven't really listened. I haven't really cared to listen. But for example, when someone really close to me said something to me, I suddenly had the eagle's eye. And guys, the eagle's eye is certain moments in my life personally. I think it's universal. I think we all have access to a sort of eagle vision that translates as how the unknown space behind our eyes is us. That means after some point, it's like, what can you identify with in a changing world? You know, it's like I'm just waiting to see it. That the first, right now, of course, identity has always been a game of man. That means after we kind of got comfortable wearing clothing, we saw everybody's allowed to wear clothing. That means, you see, this is insane, guys. But check this out: person A and person B might be enemies, or they may have differences, and person B might look at person A and look at this, guys. Isn't it hilarious? Isn't it hilarious that human beings have cared about skin color? Let me tell you why it's hilarious. Because you don't see, for example, for example, how would I say it? I want to kind of make this a bit, bring some history into this. So every human being should know that back in the day there was slavery and human rights hadn't developed. That means human beings didn't know about their rights. That means a lot of people in history lived lives that they didn't deserve, but they weren't conscious to know that they didn't deserve it. You know? That means there was something so ahead of its time, guys. It's like what gave me goosebumps when I heard like Martin Luther King speak was he's like, I have a dream. Most people know about Martin Luther King's dream speech, but they don't know what his dream is. And Martin Luther King in his speech, he says, I have a dream, you know, that that his children, in some sense, don't get judged by the nature, but don't get judged by the nature of their character rather than the color of their skin. Do you see? So it's like right now, imagine how hilarious would it be if somebody goes like in downtown Toronto to someone and he's like, I don't like the color of your jacket, man. Take off your jacket, you know, or I'm gonna take it off for you. It's like, then you see, no, nobody cares about what people. I mean, I don't want to kind of. I'm just saying. I'm not commenting on the fashion industry. I'm saying that we don't care about the color, but why do we care about the color when it's on the person's skin? You don't care, for example, like how the whole cosmos is black, you know, but there was racism back in the day. That means people that were identifying with objects, so they sought the freedom of the objective experience. But now Mr. Within is saying we're going to a point where it's the subject. We are finding freedom as a subject. Do you know? Your inner realms is literally how your DNA is data processing itself into a subject. Sensory data processing, and the result is a subject that feels it doesn't know. That's the result. That's what we see so far. So this is I want to constantly ground this idea because there is this notion that I've kind of developed where I say I'm pretty much that guy in history who I think one of the first people who in some sense is connecting the imagery of the pilot with the imagery of inner multidimensional transformation. That means when I close my eyes, I can be anything. The visual sensory, the immediate visuals of the sensory data don't keep it. That means when you close your eyes, like just look at something and close your eyes, you'll notice what that image of the sensory, what you visibly are seeing, it's if you close your eyes, you see the slight kind of magnetish or whatever kind of like you're looking at outline when you close your eyes in some sort of space, right? So when you close your eyes, it's like there is the absence of sight, so we are in a state of absent visual sight. But this visual sight there's a substrate, there is something beneath it, before it. You know? That means the walls of matter have walls that are not material. That means our walls have walls. That's what it means. That's the kind of multidimensionality our species requires to confront. Now, the inner realms and the outer realms, guys, again, I wish I had a whiteboard, but I'm going to ask you to draw some shapes. So I hope the listener has some sort of piece of paper or something. Or you can just draw it in, like, imagine a piece of paper in your mind and draw it there. I don't know. Like, your choice. But I'm saying draw one circle and put a smaller circle inside it. Then draw like a Venn diagram, two circles which are half of each circle is inside the other circle. Do you know what I mean? So draw like two circles where they're connecting in the middle, and then draw another circle with another circle inside it. So I'm gonna wait a couple seconds. If the audience want to interact in the chat section, let me know if you've done drawing. If you're done drawing this picture. Pretty much, you're drawing one circle with a circle inside it, same size circle. Then you're drawing two circles which are kind of connected, intersecting in the middle, and then you draw, so you pretty much are drawing like, you know how the Olympics logo is? You're drawing two circles like that. Okay, so like Venn diagram-ish. So then the other circle right beside that, and do this. So draw the first image, then to the right of it, draw the Venn diagram, then to the right of the Venn diagram, draw the same circle as you drew. Can people hear me? Yeah, okay. Okay, nice. So right now, guys, some people finished drawing it, so I'm going to tell you. So the first circle, the one on the far left, okay, put the letter I on the outside of the circle, like just outside of the circle, and then put the letter uh, like O on the outside of the inner circle. I want you to kind of realize the outer circle, we're calling it I, the letter I, and the inner circle, we're calling it the letter O. Okay? And then when you get to the Venn diagram, guys, let me know when you're finished so I could continue it. Guys, I'm listening to like the most emotional ambient music talking about like geometry. Alright, I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna see when people they finish drawing it. So now I want you to go to the right, which is the same circle as the first one, and now replace the I and O. Okay, so the circle at the right. So this, oh my god. You have two circles, and then you have two circles Venn diagram style in the middle of those two. Okay. So I just want to say now, change it to OI. Do the opposite of what you did with the first circle to the left. Okay. So the first thing I told you of how to. Oh man, I think I'm confusing you guys. Okay. All right. Here, what am I doing? Let me just draw this for you and somehow post it. Alright guys, I'm finished drawing this, so I'm gonna take a picture and somehow send it. Guys, this picture that I've drawn, the reason I'm sharing it with you is because it's a very, I think it's a very efficient way. I've kind of, in a diagram way, explained the psychology of man. Pretty much 3 states. That means this is a classification of 3 psychological dispositions that the human being can find himself in, right? So this is 3 modes of how the relationship of your inner realms and outer realms with one another. So I'm going to just take a picture and send this. Sorry guys, almost done here. Just hang on. Just taking a picture with my phone to send. Alright. Okay, here. Okay, here we go. So guys, I'm gonna ask you to pay attention to the screen of the video of this talk because I'm gonna put the picture there so you see what I'm kind of talking about. Okay. So this is the image I was talking about. This is what I meant. So Jesus. All right. So guys, that's the picture I was talking about. I meant that if you look at this picture, you see that one relationship is in some sense how the outer realms are more real than the inner realms. One relationship is when the inner realms and the outer realms are both real, and the other relationship is when the inner realms are more real than the outer realms. Right now, civilization, if you can draw a line, if you could put the two right pictures, the two right kind of Venn diagram, the IO and the OI. You see what I mean? Like those two on the right, this is mainstream civilization. Mainstream civilization, the outer realm is more real than the inner realm, and sometimes there's imagination and whatnot. But this is mysticism. This is like my talks are trying to focus on the inner realms positioning before the outer realms, which is the kind of mystery of how character is in form in a process. You know, guys. So this now what I'm saying overall is that this picture I drew for you evolves into this. This is the soul. So if this is the game of the mind and the body, this is what I mean by like a higher consciousness. Do you see what I mean? So I'm gonna let it maybe buffer for a couple seconds. So that L is where language and personality happens. That's anytime we try to go something in purely matter. Matter you can't doesn't have language. It's just a phenomenon. It's just being. But when you go to, for example, like the inner realms and imagination and psychology and free will and all that, that's where it goes beyond the language threshold. So right now, I'm speaking to you, dear listener, and everybody who's a human being in the linguistic simulation. We are between the I-O, and the secular society pulls us to OI, and non-secular views, mystical society pulls us to I-O. I feel that if the OI, if the circle where the outer realm is more real than the inner realm, you'll get programmed by your outer realm. Free will ceases to exist if you are not a result of yourself. Do you see? Guys, it's just language. It's like every person is a painting, and when they speak, that painting is just revealed. Do you know that? Means think of how many different artists there are in the world using the paintbrush differently. Yeah. And guys, sometimes I get excited, so I might jump ahead. But anyways, anybody at any point in me giving this talk can, in some sense, ask a question about it or ask me to rephrase or whatever. So anyways, let's get back to nature. So this relationship with our inner realms, it really depends on where your attention is. That bigger circle is like the attention. We have kind of forgotten something. If your belief system is in the right, I'll bring the picture here again. If your belief system is, let's say, if your belief system is more towards OI, that means the outer realms, you feel you're more a material entity than a sort of spatial or immaterial field or being, then you in some sense kind of psychedelics, the psychedelic mind, as Terence McKenna and all these Alan Watts and Aldous Huxley, all those guys, like they were saying, like that's kind of um, I'm just saying that there is an experience on this world where you require, like literally, if we define a force as a push and a pull, a push or a pull, and we define the world filled with force or various forces acting as laws, for example, the law of gravity. So, in some sense, we are an unspeakable force that speaks in either pulling or pushing. We're either pulling ourselves towards the outer realms, or we're pushing ourselves from the outer realms, or we're pulling ourselves to our inner realms, or we're being pushed to our inner realms. Okay? I feel evolution is taking us to our inner realms. So, what does that mean? Let me draw another picture. That means IO is here's the thing. This is here. I'm gonna draw the perfect picture, guys. Just hang on. I'm just drawing it here. Messed it up. All right, guys. Here's the picture. This picture is so excellent, I think. Alright guys, check this out. This is just... I'm so proud of these lines I just drew. Okay, there we go. Alright folks, here it is. So this thing, like pretty much guys, what I speak about in these talks, like this is kind of me giving a geometrical translation to what I share in these talks. So this is a very unique episode. I'm glad whoever's tuning in, it's okay, here, perfect. So check this out. This is now what I'm saying about the pattern of history, and in some sense, here. Oh my god, it's too big. Alright, whatever, it works. So guys, check out this picture, you know? So I explained to you the I-O and the O-I, okay? And actually there is another version of these three circles where the I and O are just one circle. They're inseparable. So I gotta say, like, enlightenment is when I and O are the same circle. So technically I-O is enlightenment. But anyways, if a person sees what I've drawn here, that's sine wave, that kind of curvy arrow, that is history. And for example, certain moments in history, the inner realms are real. People are believing in gods walking above the clouds like the ancient Greeks, you know, and then suddenly we come to times now where it's the opposite, where it's the peak of the outer realms. Like it's like reality is more interesting than the stretching of reality, which is imagination. You see? So now it's like we are here at the bottom. You see the bottom of the middle circle? And then it goes back, and this pattern is echoing in history. That means after some point, our physical nature, spiritual nature, our multidimensional nature, or singular nature, or void nature, all of these will just become seen as a process. That means that right now people are excited about metaphysics, not in the wrong way, in the unupdated way. You got to realize there was less freedom back in the day, so the individual couldn't see the mind as itself, as its own movement. The person saw the mind as the movement of, you know, everything. So, and that straight line is how, from the beginning of your birth, as an existential entity, as a creature, on a rock. How I said, it's like you have to be present before you can be a person. You have to be aware of phenomena before you can identify with the phenomena. So that the presence beyond the personality, aka soul, as I've written here, it's this idea of the space being the same. That means imagine like there is let's say there is this idea of like, let's say there's this, you know, we are conscious in a higher dimension, and the world is like, the multidimensionality of the world is like an onion. So we, in some sense, our minds are, we think our bodies are housing our minds are housing physical existence. Our minds are housing physical existence. That's where we're going. That's from, I mean, you can't see my mouse, kind of, but I'm moving my mouse from, you see OI in the middle circle? From the bottom of that, we are going up. So we are here. 2020 is if you see that exact intersection between the right and left circles, where the squiggly lines going between them, the right intersection where it's like history, uh, and we're literally at a moment in history right now where it's like either the Venn diagram, or it's I and O don't exist. They are one. They are the same thing. It's like either the multidimensionality is two sides of the same coin, or it's in some sense different neighbors living beside one another. I mean, we are moving from the outer realms into a more sophisticated analysis and observation and exploration of our inner realms. Whoever on this planet was listening, Mr. Within is saying, you have a responsibility not to the civilization and the species you see now, but the civilization and species the future will open its eyes in. That means the past is past, you can't do much about it, and in the present, most people tend to first navigate as a self, then care about the world. So human attention is going to self simulation. It's kind of like we're experiencing the justification of the morality, what is right and wrong in life, is coming based on this inner life that is actually never just like the outer life. Do you know? We have to pilot through our inner realms and report back our findings to the collective efficient vision of the species in the future. That means this is kind of a secret. I don't want to say it's a secret, but it's a pattern where few people realize that you become the character before you find the world. So let's say right now, like so many people are like, I'll bring it in the domain of skill. For example, I feel I've kind of like found a unique way to draw, and like actually draw, like geometry. And I don't know how to say it, but it's like creativity is not something the person has or doesn't have. It is how the attention is journeying through the space-time continuum. We are going to experience ourselves more and more and more and more as minds projecting bodies as we go into the future. So right now, whoever, it's like we have to enjoy materialism while it lasts, Evolution seems to be like, oh my god, this creature evolved to a subject. It evolved to a subject to itself. It became a subject. Can you believe that, guys? Like, I understand evolution, sure, survival of the fittest makes perfect sense. You gotta physically continue, and we gotta keep the flame of the conscious living being burning and whatnot, and so we can totally understand the survival reasons for evolution. But, why is, like, how, like, why, like, it's so unfathomable how a matter can evolve into abstraction. Oh, okay, guys. Unfortunately, I have to. This episode's going to be a bit shorter, but in the chat section, someone wants to know what I meant by that kind of square thing. Here's the simple idea. Like I could just say it one more time. Draw a square, and then literally draw a plus sign. Make 4 squares inside it. The top left square, okay, make it draw it completely as like black, or just fill it in. Okay. Now I want you to say, you can put the how would I say? Oh yeah. Okay. So put I S um, IWS in the bottom circle. Not circle. What am I saying? Draw a square. Put a plus sign in the middle. Make it into 4 squares. The top square on the right side, on the right top, the top right square, write the initials IS. In the square underneath that, write IWS, and oh, sorry, put ISO, IWSO, and then put. Okay, sorry guys, I gotta say this again. Forget the initials here. I'm gonna draw this for you, and just this is easier, I think. Guys, I have to make this part 1 and come and give part 2, but I'm gonna draw this at least before I go. Guys, I hope you can read my handwriting when I post this. Okay, almost done, guys. Perfect. Alright, guys. So let me take a picture of this, and then I'm going to say this is part 1, and then I'll be back probably later, in a couple hours. So I'm just hanging there. I'm taking a picture of this to send it to you, and if you can't read my handwriting, then it's like, then that's, you know, destiny. Joking. Okay. There we go. Oh man, I think it's too small to read, but anyways. So guys, I'm just gonna, for the sake of the handwriting not being clear, okay, so I'm just gonna explain what I meant by these squares. And so the inner out, identifying with the outer space. Identifying with the outer space, we can identify the outer space. We can identify what's inside the outer space, so we can see that we identify the outer space as like the whole cosmos and the stars and galaxies. Okay, then we identify what's inside the outer space to be particles, matter, periodic table, and elemental reality. That's in front of your eyes. Like atoms don't have personalities, guys. They're just atoms, right? So that's the outer realms. You see the arrows, the two arrows on the top? The arrow on the right is what you see in front of your eyes. The arrow on the left is what you see behind your eyes. Now I'm saying we can identify what's inside the inner space. We can see that the like, just like how in outer space there's in some sense like particles of matter, the different elements. In the inner space, the elements are thoughts, images, and it's a more kind of a subjective thing. So we have access to, again, what's inside the cup, but we don't know. Do you see that question mark I drew? That question mark means we can't identify the inner space. That means we can't tell if our minds are occurring on higher dimensions. Do you see? And the reason of that is because our language is rooted to the imagery of this dimension, so it can never be fathomable to some degree. You know, so we've set up certain filters that, on some level, yes, it does help you with the conducting yourself as a rational creature, but on another level, it is limiting the search by considering. It's like someone who doesn't want to open the door of their house of a room, and they think that room is the only world. They think the whole world is the size of that room, not realizing there's doors you can open. So this is a door that I feel collectively will be opened when we become more like different rivers joining together to go towards the same ocean, which is the advanced civilization. or Civilization 2.0 as I call it. So anyways, guys, this is part 1. I gotta end this, but I'll be back. So thanks for tuning in. Part 2's coming up in a couple hours. Blessings.